1910 was the Belle Époque in France, or the end even of Belle Époque. These fertile days between excitement of the novelties and the fear of the old things like the wars. And at the same time electricity, but at the same time hatred. I think Debussy was ironic but tender mix of these in his works. Satie has that kind of poetry with a lot of satire in it. But in the case of Debussy, it is so true that he's master of colors, of hints, of suggestions, of untold. He's the master of the untold, the hinted, the suggested. And naturally, the whispered. The immense sense of intimacy that comes out of the few simply played melodic lines, more or less pentatonic and very loosely harmonized, mostly by sort of a plagal amen. It's really mostly not so much about the melody and the harmonization, it's about the breathing. How the melodic elements and the harmonic elements float with the flow of the flux and the reflux of some kind of a essentially breathing creature. It is true that the first melody starts from the high D flat to finish at the bottom after 4 bars, and then starting at the dominant, if it's possible to call it so, in 2 bars. Sorry for this. On the E flat major chord is a surprise, and again 4 bars down. That's the highlights of the harmonic arrival points. It's very reductive, obviously too reductive. But between those elements you have this floating melodic element would be sort of a leitmotif, cradling, as if settling after hesitance. It seems more like the harmonizations in Debussy here are sort of the Reader's Digest of the melodic line. For instance, in this bar, very much like a harp with a digging arpeggiation from the bottom up. We have all the notes of this pentatonic, which became in the melody, displayed during the bar that just started with this chord arpeggiated. And then we have the tonic, triad, with passing tones. So he seems to just highlight the melodic line with a chordal shortcut to it. Same thing. As if we're having the harmonization, a preview of the melodic design. So this kind of dialogue, imitation, mirrored, shadowed harmonization in the melody, and the melody answering, in fact, the harmonization. is a very interesting balance of effects, because it allows for resonances. Of course, we don't want to play thick chords here. We want voiced, if bunched, or displayed. In higher or lower registers, or very stretched dispositions, or very intimate. All these details are constitutive of an amazing suspended moment where you almost hold your breath listening to it, but then you have to breathe after the 4th bar, after the 8th bar, after the 12th bar. And then these breathing are not always organized by 4 bars. Sometimes they just overlap a little bit, or in an improvisatory style. Obviously, that's what it's suggested in this daydream, imagination, atmosphere, clearly an atmosphere. I would like to emphasize the importance for the pianist to play the harmonizations inside the chords, meaning the chords with inside the keys, that's what I meant. So it sounds more like a chorale in 4 parts. Austerely, church-like, and then the top, the melody, completely sensual. Playing on the 4ths, as if a veil that goes through the wind, brought here or there. Nonchalant. Whenever the harmonies are very, the contrary of the melodic line, which is free and floating and fancy-free, the accompaniment of the harmonization is extremely I would say austere, in the good sense, meaning of no bad sense, austere. It's the sense of austere. Almost like another piece within the piece, because the melody breathe, pedal change, but just replay the moment of the interruption, as if you want to just to capture a second where you just swallow your saliva or your breath and you continue, as if the storytelling is so marvelous, but I need more breath to go to the next exclamation. Yes, truly, E flat major, when I went in this country. This gentle narration is very free-floating. I think it should be played legato, but not over legato, not glue legato. because then it becomes harmonization. Since most of it is thirds, sorry for triplets, that's not what I meant, in thirds or in fourths. So it becomes, isn't it chordal when you want to keep the chordal for that part, and this melodic. So the legato shouldn't be finger overheld, no pedal, little, but in any case there is no pedal just for the top part, obviously. There is a pedal for everything, which is mostly harmonic pedal. That's why the fingers came to be air legato. Almost like a speech with syllables. I would like to tell you how much this is beautiful. I'm sorry, it's so cheesy to say that, but anyway, involved in saying a story, compared to the together it would be D-flat resonates until it's alone. And then continuing with the melodic line, which was in a decay of the sound picked up at its moment of almost disappearance, and gently lifted up to bring us to E-flat major. So what is this E-flat major? It comes on the third beat in anticipation with a surprise and an extra alteration. In other words, we don't expect more, less, perhaps, but for sure not in that space of the before the downbeat. It could have been, it would have been still so beautiful and meaningful and blossoming, like as if some kind of inner beauty comes out of this volcano and just illuminates the horizon. And the solitude of the melodic line returns with even more intensity, but intimacy and intensity. Whisperato. It's the first time we hear the harmonization after the loneliness of the opening. It's interesting to note that these third inversions of dominant sevenths are not dominant sevenths of any key, they're just there as parallel chords. But the full tone is respected in Debussy's imagination. He doesn't continue. Exactly what I think is so incredible is that he hints those elements, he doesn't display them, he doesn't exaggerate them. The balance of it is in what he doesn't do rather than in what he does, in what he doesn't indulge and in what he hints but refrains, as if to let your imagination continue and then just restart the harmony at another degree or the melody at another point, as if to say, and by the way, and this narration brought us to this spot, and this spot brought us to this thought, and sometimes you just branch off. But the fact is that here, this harmonization is interrupted by cadence. This time not plagal, but perfect for whatever, it's perfect cadence here, but anyway, it is, loosely. He arrives again, like in the E-flat, before the beat 3-1. He arrives here at the 6th, 8th note. 3, and the downbeat is piano with the harmonization. But the melody stays suspended. So the melody is not landing on the downbeat where you would expect it to blossom or to peak. or to simply bring its full fruition. No. He doesn't go above on the ninth. He doesn't go in a cacciatura under to go up. He just goes on the note, but avoiding the leading tone going up, but allowing it as a model design almost of a melodic descending scale, in fact the major. So we have the F after the G flat, the leading tone, after we bypassed it, and then it comes here nested between G and E flat, G flat, E flat. Such a subtle dosage of the affect, the leading tone delayed, the tonic anticipated before the beat, but with a subito piano harmonization when the melody soars as long as the decay of the piano allows. If there was to be a fermata, but he doesn't indulge in the fermata. He creates a sort of a hemiola of the two bars of 3/4. Of course, I always see hemiolas. Two, yeah, actually, one, sorry, it's not written. 2, 1, 2, 3, could be considered 1, 2, 3. Why not? A 3/2 in the 2 times 3/4, but that doesn't really change much. It's just how you look at it. These interrupted climaxes. So the second time we have the E flat major chord is no more as striking as the very first time when it came out of nowhere. It could have been just the, which it is, 6th degree of G flat major, which is a minor triad. A Picardy version. Bar beats ascending, it's a Freudian slip. It's almost like a bar beat, but anyway. Third beat. 1. He reaches the peak again on the third beat before the downbeat, and not calculatedly as it could have been. He arrives and then stays idle. Of course, sometimes he's soft, but most of the time is here mezzo forte, which is a lot compared to the piano that's just before. Avoiding absolutely the F of the leading tone. He does hemiolas, not this time. Well, they could be also considered such, but it's the point here harmonically of the melodic pentatonic of 5 sounds. Floating without tension or release, nor release. And I think the pedal can stay all over that, and he even says sans lourdeur, without weight, without heaviness, without bunched chordal. There's a pianissimo and porous, I think, more. Like, you hear the contours of the melody and the chords, but not the essence of it, not the thickness, not the material part of it. It's immaterial. More like a harp that would longer the sound. Finally, after 4 bars of this melodic, like in the opening, cradling, here harmonized. He has it inside the tenor, inside the chord, the leading tone, not so obviously displayed. This time is really E flat minor, the 6th degree, not the, as we had in the conclusive. The regular degree, the minor triad, when it's a 6th degree of G flat as it is. It's important in both this opening and closing sequences of dialogue between the two parts, the melody and the accompaniment harmonization, like muted violas. It is more like an alto flute. Qui says murmurer, et en retenant peu à peu, murmurer, whispered, murmurs, murmur, and little by little slower, but not at once. So it's so easy to hear. You and me, me and you. No, it should be us, but not the same sound. So the 6/4 unsettled compared to the triad position of good position, float in between the beats in a darker, almost like lost soul moment. And the melody very tenderly, softly lit from under. It's almost as if it's one of his melodies, songs, art songs, where the poetry sort of takes care of explaining why the melody and the harmony do what they do, or sometimes purposely not. In other words, here the absence of words concentrates even more the imagination towards colorful voicing rather than just patches of colors. Naturally, these vanishing elements of 3 beats, of which 2 in 16th notes by 4 and 1 by 3, it's already a rhythmic ritenuto, but he adds to it little by little, slower and disappearing. The indication of the arpeggiation with the noodle sign does not indicate the speed of it. That is left to the performer's fancy, and I think it's a big responsibility, because when the chord is finished with arpeggiation in the left hand and very soft togetherness in the right hand, this would be more played like with harmonics on the harp, this kind of soft, muted but resonant sound that you obtain on the harp with the harmonic resonance of the sound. And notice how well he chooses to display his chords, because he has those 2 B flats, the 3rd, everything else is dubbed and tripled. The 5th, obviously, G flat and C flat, with the 2 B flats in the middle, after which the 5th is retold, and the G flat of the octave is retold, in a way as if to prolong the resonance even for a further decay in the diminuendo. One could amuse oneself to continue every next beat or bar and to maintain it. Daydreaming further is this sentences that finish with 3 dots. It's like and then, and then, and then. The purpose of Debussy is to be in this prelude extremely concise, and I just destroyed it by improvising at least an extra page of Debussisms, which are distantly mirrored by my pettiness. So no. But I must say, it is not a vain exercise, the improvisation, in terms of getting familiar with the toolbox of the composer, and not only the technological technique, of writing technique style point of view, but also in the interpretation. In the resonances, in the case of Debussy, the pedal is really the third hand, if I may say, of the piano playing. And because the chords are extracted through their resonances more than through their articulation, or some, but not all. And so, in order to create this kind of subtle balance between the clear and the unclear, the smeared and the crystalline, the bell resonant like and the dark murmured or whispered, all these different elements exist. They're just hinted by Debussy in a very subtle and therefore concise way, without redundancies or vulgar restatement. I think this is the most important part of the piece, is that it is short. I am bubble talker, so I don't qualify for that wisdom in the concision of the form in the piece, let less to explain not, but display the beauties of the piece, layered, yes, display, probably is better than layered. Every element of the emotion that is pouring out of this music is encapsulated in all what he hints in his writing, which is so more important to be aware where to breathe, where the pedal has to let the resonance almost die, or the finger holding, and just before you change harmony or continue the melody, you hear it alone. It's it's always a question about what you hear. Like you dialogue with yourself, not in a narcissistic way, but in an orchestral way, as if the conductor anticipates an orchestra response and he gives the next impulse. And perhaps correct some balances between the horns, if they're muted horns, compared to, let's say, a soft flute, or just the strings with the bow barely touching the strings, and the harp. But all these colorizations, we like to think on the piano, we have to imagine orchestration. Yes, it's so powerful in the description of the narration by the chordal and elements of melodic lines and all these things, that colorizing it is a distraction. But the shadow and the lights, the mirroring of the melody, the harmony, the subtle pedal that lets the resonances sort of blend and merge in the traffic of themselves, or even dance in the air among themselves. It's a very imaginational thing, but factually the piano is a poorer instrument in terms of a variety of timbres, of colors that the different instruments would obtain between an oboe and the clarinet and the horn or the bassoon, and of course all this is terribly schematic, not to mention reductive in my description. But it doesn't hurt to write even down on the score the elements of instrumental group of instruments or solo, which would be suitable in the imagination of the performer pianist, in order for the pianist to find the unit, which is the piano's timbre, but as well as the voicing, layering. I think between voicing, layering, and this hierarchy of resonances, able to isolate the important notes that punctuate like stars in the dark, that lit very subtly at a very specific moment and highlight a certain path of stars that you can see when you look at night on the sky. It doesn't mean that one has to play per se a jeu inégal, the uneven, already French harpsichord is specialty in short subphrases with articulations that are, or even modern jazz, not even modern jazz as it is, where you would highlight a certain melodic note more than another, even for the rhythmic pulse more than to, as well as a harmonic suggestion. With anticipation before the beat, which he does so clearly here too. But it's not jazzy per se, but or meant to be as such per se either. But when you can choose to draw this kind of semicircle of rainbow in the most beautifully, purely, possibly legato connection of equal sounds that sing and speak in the sense of the voice, the human voice. Okay, sorry for the singing example, it's very goofy. Or choosing to play more shadows and lights and then highlight some of the notes of the arrival points in softer, the 16th notes, perhaps the passing tones. On the piano, especially when taught, are easily exaggerated, at least in my case, to make the point, to prove my point, to highlight the point that I would like to bring out, let's say in this case, a little bit of an uneven, broken melodic line with examples of melodic notes that are highlighted more than others. Then it becomes too much of that point of view. So, in reality, when one plays, one should not search for this amount of complexification, is not the word. The simplicity is not in the simpleness of things. It's more about the fact it's a natural drawing, as if you take a pencil and you just draw a phrase or half a circle. The evidence of the spontaneity rather than the complexity of some kind of sophisticated sub-phrasing. But then perhaps you should incorporate a little of that proportion, but not fully that, so that it doesn't break the melodic line and you still hear every note. But I think the practicing then becomes an infinitely beautiful moment where you search, you dig inside yourself, you dig in the piece answers to you, an echo to your inner voice, inner ear hearing rather than inner voice also. And then it becomes a dialogue between yourself and the piece, not yourself and yourself in a narcissistic only way, partly. Inevitably, the loneliness of the pianist practicing creates that. But it's not the end point, it's just the journey of it. But nevertheless, there is a constant dialogue between what is indicated in the score, between the notes and the few suggestions, c'est des mouvements très peu, un peu animés, c'est des mouvements sans lourdeur, without weight or heaviness, c'est des mouvements très doux, murmurés en retenant un peu à peu in the notes and the words, not the spoken or sung like in the melodies, but the suggested hints of harmonic notes which in the words become mood, as if to prolong the meaning of the harmonic and melodic line by saying mysterious, distant, dying, heavy, or without heaviness, or whispered, or very tender, très doux. Oops, sorry for this wrong note. It wasn't very tender, was it? Now, frankly, if he didn't write très doux on this very D flat with a little tenuto on top of it, pianissimo by the chord a tempo in the beginning of the bar, and the third beat again, third beat, slur to the first, because he always anticipates the beat. Wouldn't have we guessed that it is very tender? I doubt that somebody would go, it's an exaggeration again, but let's say it more subtly. A misunderstanding can happen at the level of a subtle moment. It doesn't have to be so flagrant. When it could be really. I always insist on the importance of picking up softly the short note after the long value, like, of course it creates a little bit of a wave after it if it drops, and you pick it soft on the bottom of it and you bring it to a higher ground on the wings of the phrase which is not finished. It's very important because it's easy to attack oneself, well, not attack, but to attach oneself, that's what I want to say, to the utmost little detail. On this note is special, and this is meaningful, and this is tender, and this is resonant, and this is this and that. It is true, all of this is true, but it's the sum of it in the spontaneity of the simplicity of the expression that matters, and not the details by themselves. Always where you go with this phrase, because if not, you would finish the phrase and start a new one, which is wrong, because it's only the prolongation of the sentence, a run-on sentence. So, and still continuing. that the melodic line doesn't do this and then again this. Some of them do in the beginning, a little more organized by 4 and 8 or so, 4 and 4 bars. But here it's like as if from this subdominant pedal for some kind of very delayed plagal cadence. He doesn't do that obviously. As if to say the crescendo or the middle voice going to B flat, too much in the example, but anyway, it reaches the D flat to say the phrase is not finished. Here you can start diminuendo. So don't drop a bar too early, because then you have to do just a wave up for 1 bar between this and the last 4 bars. It will become redundant. And then you have to, and again. And that is too many and again, and again, and again. So it has to remain driven towards the distant arrival point of the horizon line, which is always to be imaginary, like as if at the very beginning of the melody of the opening, you already see the shores of the arrival point. And in between you let yourself distracted, it's not the word, but divagate, like a walking, leisurely walking and observing the elements of nature around you. A shiver in a tree, perhaps of the wind in the leaves, the lonely whistle. I'm sorry for this whistle, I really reached a new low. So much more subtle than a whistle, but nevertheless. And the phrase is not finished. You continue to drop by thirds with passing tones into the modulation with a flat, which shouldn't be so loud. Anticlimatically arriving in the subdominant, and then we starting almost faster. The second D flat major arrival, and again our pentatonics, doubled by the octaves. By the new chord expression of surprise on the third beat, again slurred 1, nobody plays a downbeat. Again, 1, 2, frozen, and then released. And we cradled like the opening. Like opening a bottle of parfum and smelling it and wanting to smell it again. Oh, it smells so good. It makes me daydream, reminds me of this and that, this place, these people, this person, this memory, or perhaps this atmosphere. And then all evaporates. It's too loud, it's pianissimo. Level of concentration is the key to it all. I guess like bus drivers, don't talk to the driver. Remain focused. Naturally, he could have put a fermata. Who wouldn't, as a composer, to let this resonance die the longest possible? Perhaps his pianos didn't have that length of sound as this. But if we observe exactly the 3 beats, and his no ritenuto indicated therefore not to be done, we would have a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's all he says. If the silence is there before, the first note. Yes, enough to know the found for piano. The silence is there after the last note. Naturally, it's easy to indulge and just stay there idle until the end of times, or rather the end of resonance, of the decay of the sound, till the decay of the sound. Oh la 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 la, how many things have to be said, hinted in the playing, naturally, not in the speaking. Mesmerizing poetry. Thank you.